Hey guys, today we're going to be taking a look at Batman Vengeance for the PlayStation 2, but before we roll this video, we'd like to congratulate the winner of our PlayStation 5 giveaway contest. Brian Armstead from Ohio submitted a 2-hour-long freestyled review of Sly 2 Band of Thieves. He's a passionate young fan of the series, so we mailed him out a brand new PlayStation 5. Congrats, Brian, and thanks to everyone who submitted. Now, on to the video. I've been searching for an obscure Batman gem when it comes to gaming that I might have skipped over or haven't had brought to my attention. The more recent, popular, and critically acclaimed, the less interested I am. The Batman Arkham games have received a lot of praise. At face value, to me, they look like Batman games that play like Uncharted. I'm aware that if we're talking Batman, this is the series people are going to point me towards, but after all the years of Batman games, I was curious to see if there are any less popular titles that I may have glossed over, which maybe aren't as talked about, but could be equally worth playing. I'm pretty familiar with what Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and Genesis has to offer. The Tim Burton movie-based Batman's a pretty popular title for the NES, and you also have Return of the Joker on that console. There's a few beat-em-ups for the Super Nintendo that aren't really anything special, and a Sega Genesis version of both NES titles. The best of them all has to be The Adventures of Batman and Robin for Super Nintendo. It better be, because last time I saw it in a video game store, it was priced at nearly $100. I hear nothing but good things about this one, and it looks like the ultimate Batman platformer as far as side-scrolling games go. So if I ever have the money to blow, I would love to try it. I'd praise its graphics and visual aesthetic off rip, but that's one thing Batman games always seem to share. They always seem to nail the look and feel of a Batman movie or animated series, but less can be said for the gameplay in many cases. When we get up to the PlayStation 1 era, I don't know what the fuck happened. You have your choice of 4 titles that all blow. An arcade-style fighting game based on Batman Forever, a racing game, a horribly generic and faulty beat-em-up based on Batman Beyond, and this really overly ambitious attempt at an open-world, half-detective-driven, half-battle-driven, fucking colossal mess based on Batman and Robin. So, I guess we're on to PlayStation 2. Let's take a look at Batman Vengeance. I've never heard of it, and it doesn't seem to be as talked about as many of the games I just breezed over, so we're gonna play through it and see if it's up my alley. The graphics are what you'd expect of a game based on a Batman animated show. No complaints, but nothing special really either. You're introduced to some cool Gotham scenery where you hop rooftops and start to get a feel for the mechanics. You save a woman from a bomb, and it goes off as you escape the explosion with the hostage in your arms, which is a fun way to open. As I'm sure you can imagine, it's explained that the Joker was behind this, though as soon as you begin to explore who this woman is and why she was captured by the Joker, you're thrown into a training course to brush up on your skills. I hate training courses, and I much rather just learn as I go, like with any game, but here, there really are so many different functions and a lot of different moves that utilize the same button for different purposes at different times. So, for once, I'm actually paying attention here, even though like with any Hazard Room style segment, I'm still a little annoyed because I feel like the game hasn't really fully started yet. Once we're back in action, the nighttime scenery really begins to draw me in more, and I start to get used to the mechanics. R1 centers you behind Batman to easily refocus the camera should it assume an awkward angle, and fucking around with it shows you how high above the city streets you are. The game sort of forces you to slow down, assess your environment, and find what's available to you for leverage. You can't just maneuver through the stages at full speed. Even while fighting enemies, it seems impossible to not take damage if you don't block punches. So between blocking and striking, taking out the Joker's goons become like mini battles where you feel temporarily pulled away from roaming. But this pace oddly begins to grow on me as I start to feel as present in the stage as I guess the game wants me to be instead of eagerly zipping through it. Now I feel like the gameplay has a flow, and I'm becoming immersed. This one really is a lot of fun, and has the kind of style and approach to gameplay that I've been looking for in a Batman game. Oddly, after beating up an enemy, they don't die, they just hit the ground, and if you don't handcuff them, they'll get back up and come at you again. I don't know if that was for added challenge, being that once in a while some enemies can't be cuffed and you gotta get the fuck away from them before they get back up and come at you again, or if they figured enemies shouldn't die in a kid's game, even though when enemies die in a game, their bodies sort of just disappear. It's not the most gruesome thing in the world. It's not really a death. Technically, it's a defeat, but whatever. You're gonna use the grappling hook a lot, and at times you'll need to throw batarangs at enemies. This is where you'll encounter the most irritation you're gonna have with this game. If only you could aim with the left analog, your right thumb would be free to hit the buttons that fire your weapon, but you aim with the right analog and have to swap between your aim and your attack with the same thumb, which is a bitch for accuracy. In an instance like this boss fight with the Joker, he swings down on a wrecking ball. You have to position yourself in front of one of the beams so the wrecking ball hits the beam, which is like where he was aiming to try and hit you. You know how this kind of thing goes. When the wrecking ball hits the beam, you need to quickly switch to your first-person batarang throwing view, and you only have a small window of time where he's in reach to fire batarangs at him, so you're gonna fix that aim quick, hop to your attack, and more often than not, by the time you do that, you can either only fire off 1 or 2 batarangs at the Joker, or the Joker's already switched his position and he's out of reach. This is frustrating as fuck! Like, really it is. It's the only time where you feel like you're hardly in control. Why the fuck wouldn't they use the left analog as your aim? It's also odd to notice that there's no Robin in this game, just Batgirl, who you check in on from time to time while investigating the villains, until she steps out into the field herself and needs you to help her fend off enemies on a train, and I fucking love moving train levels. Cliche as fuck, but awesome. Yeah, Batgirl's not playable though, she's mostly just there for storytelling elements. At one point, you go unmasked, actually playing through a level as Bruce Wayne, which is an odd change of pace. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't skipping most of the cutscenes to get right to the action, but the gist of the plot is kind of similar to like a Spider-Man 2000. You go after several known villains from the comics all at once, the villains play their cards right and get Batman framed, so Batman has to lay low from law enforcement. That's the reason for playing as Bruce Wayne throughout a stage, so Batman has to defeat the villains and clear his name. After all the games that failed at giving you an experience equal to the excitement of a Batman movie or comic book, this one delivers with action, adventure, stealth elements, level intensity, and the functionality necessary to make the player feel like Batman. So dating back to its release, if you bought it because you enjoy the animated series, I think you got yourself a game that holds up as a playable experience of the show. I don't know why it isn't as talked about, there's hardly any YouTube videos about it, and I wouldn't have known about it myself if I didn't really dig for it. But minus a few minor irritating control issues, this is a real gem of the PS2 that I recommend checking out if you breezed past it as well.